This, in a sense, is one useful way of pointing out the fundamental issue, the great matter of the self, that it is continually reflecting itself, reflecting on itself, but it cannot find itself in any of those reflections. Maybe a hint of itself, a trace of itself, but never is able to be satisfied. In a sense, this is a simple way of seeing the dukkha, or the underlying dis-ease that is inevitable, inescapable for the self. It seeks to fully know itself, to fully be itself, to fully grasp itself, and yet it can't. By its very nature, it can't. So the whole nature of self-reflection, the self, in a sense, is reflecting itself, so it can never fully grasp itself. Again, this is one way of describing the dis-ease that comes out in various ways in our life. We seek to be one way, but we are not. We are aware of this. We reflect on it. I want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. This endless wavering of the self, I would say, that's not something about the self. That's what the self is. It sounds so solid and unmistakable, the self, but when we really examine it in sustained practice, we open up and see. It's split from beginning to end. And of course, the one great matter of birth and death, or life and death, it's the same term, is only one way of describing it. It's alive, and as sure as it is alive, it will die. It doesn't want to die. It's split through and through. The fundamental problem with New Age spirituality, pop Zen, and so on, is precisely that. It gets to the point of, for example, I am, an open awareness, non-dual awareness, awareness without an object. But this is simply, how to say it, examine it carefully for yourself. This open-ended awareness, or open awareness. This is the last vestige, the last hiding place of the self, seeking to assert itself as I am. In Buddhism, it's been clear since the beginning in the early Buddhist suttas. It repeatedly speaks of the awakening of Buddhism as putting an end to or undoing the great I am conceit. Conceit is a kind of arrogance or pride or hubris, spiritual pride. Precisely, I am. That's the conceit that must be undone. It's not the objects that come to awareness and then we see that, aha, I am. There is always this underlying awareness. Forget the objects, huh? No. This is the conceit that must be undone. I would say without that, there is no genuine spirituality. This is where awakening opens up. When I am, when we are released of the very need to be, you see, to be anything, to be great, to be small, to be enlightened. The very need to be something, that's the fundamental dis-ease. And it is very clearly seen in I am awareness. It's in a sense naked there, but it's still there. It will not do for genuine Buddhism, or I suppose for any genuine spirituality. So please beware. These images can be used in various ways. For example, in early Zen, I think we took this up in 2020, so 3 years ago. The sixth patriarch, the Platform Sutra of the sixth patriarch. So I won't go into detail here, but very simply, the head monk had written a poem about the mirror, again, the same image, the mirror on the stand. And what do? What is practice? We must carefully polish, keep the mirror clean, so that it can seamlessly reflect everything. And then, of course, so famous, the beginning, in a sense, of the real Chinese Zen tradition. The guy who became the sixth patriarch, in a sense, criticized that poem by saying, the mind is not a mirror on the stand. The body is not what it seems to be. It's not the bodhisattva. But the real point is, honrai muichimotsu. What's the real point of the sixth patriarch's poem, Cyrus?
Say again?
What is the real point of the sixth patriarch's poem?
Nothing.
Originally, there is not
Nothing.
one thing.
Yeah.
Is that reflecting or not?
Reflecting,
You
nothing
see?
to reflect.
Originally, it's not well translated. Originally, it means really, right here and now, there is not one thing. What does that mean? Well, of course, he's, in a sense, critiquing or criticizing the previous poem about constantly polishing the mirror. And when people don't understand, they think, aha, we don't have to polish the mirror, we just realize there's not one thing, whatever that means. I mean, isn't this a camera here? Isn't this the floor? Isn't this a cushion? Anyway, not one thing, right? And people have no idea what they're talking about. He's not just criticizing it. Without that statement about polishing the mirror, that's what we're doing here in a sense. That is the process of the practice. That is getting the body, the breath, and the mind in order. In a sense, if you want, cleansed, purified, no longer defiled. Yes, without that, in a sense, we can't begin. But the point is, if we simply remain open, for example, I am awareness, polishing the mirror, or even feeling that it doesn't need to polish it, it's still there. The root delusion is still there. And so, at least it's a legend, but it's a good one. In the legend, the sixth patriarch says, originally there's not one thing. Where can the dust alight? There's no dust, there's no mind, there's not one thing. What does that really mean? There's not one thing. In Japanese, we learn English by saying, this is a pen. This is a pen. That's the first lesson. Isn't this a pen? There's not one thing. What does that really mean? Can anyone answer that? Here, there's really everything. Everything as it really is. And that is not one thing. That is, to put it as we spoke previously, nothing is reflected through the self. It's not an object for the self. Reality manifesting itself, not through me. It doesn't need to be manifest through me. That's the I am delusion. It's already full, up to our eyeballs, as we say. We're into it up to our eyeballs, and yet we're trying to find it, to seek it, to purify it. Again, it's not to say purifying it, practicing, cleansing the mirror. Of course, this is a metaphor for the mind, is not useful. No, it's essential. It's essential. I don't know anyone who hasn't spent a great deal of time doing that has had a genuine awakening. People think they have, but no. That process, that practice is essential, but it's not going to get you there. It doesn't need to get you there. The mind just needs to stop seeking after somewhere else to be, you see? Something to be. And then you find, as we say in the German translation of the book, the way is under your feet. The way begins under your feet. It's always already there. But you must realize that. It cannot be reflected. Now, what actually comes up in your mirror, in your mind? What actually remains in your mind when you have given yourself fully to the practice, when you are truly settled? There is not a thing. If so, show me that. If something remains, what is it? What is it? Make it clear, otherwise you just go around and around and around in the same old circles. Zazen is to let that endless mental circles, and to let them just come to their own end. And then see, that means realize with all the senses, what's there. Once you really see what's underfoot, you won't go running after things again. What is it that is reflected in your mirror? What remains there? What remains there?